Has it really come to that, friends? In some places it has. In the UK, a lot of our friends over there are finding themselves in quite a pickle. They have been slow boiled up to this point where they're finding that they have very few options left. I'm going to go through in this video to talk to those in America, to those in some areas where still freedom to some extent still exists. And some of this, with preparation and some of the communications and stuff like that, will be applicable to our friends over here. Because some of the situation that they're in is they haven't thought things through, they haven't prepared, and some of that doesn't have to do with equipment. Now, a lot of it'd sure be helpful to have some equipment right about now. I think a lot of people over there are kind of wishing that they hadn't given away all of their equipment to the federal government under the promise that the federal government wouldn't go full Gestapo. And yet they have. So let's begin. Welcome to the Poplar Report. By the way, I'm Steve Poplar, and not popular, poplar, like the tree. Anyway, let's start at the top. The most obvious, boomsticks. They're wishing they had some boomsticks right now. Now, I know some people in the UK do have boomsticks, and we're talking about 12, not like a railway gauge, but, 12. They can have those, limited number of booms in them. But what they could really use is some, long boomsticks. Some long boomsticks that can have lots of booms in them. Short boomsticks that can be concealable and can be hidden. Friends, if you're in the United States and you still have the right, the God-given right that hasn't been taken away by your government, oh, that's coming. That's coming within the first 3 months of Special K taking charge. She's promised it. Special K is going to take away your boomsticks. And that's going to be within the first 3 months. Absolutely crazy. So boomsticks, yes. If you have the option of getting them, you might want to get them right now. And by might, I mean you do. You do want to get them. Even if you have no intention of using them, even if you don't know how to use them, get them now. You can always get training later. But at least with things in the United States, they're looking at outlawing new purchases. So get in before it happens. Same thing with the boxes that go with them. Like New Jersey just passed a ruling on something, and people were just frantically buying. Buy educatedly now when things are on sale, so you don't have to panic at the last minute, or get surprised by it happening and you didn't even know what happened. If you can't get a boomstick, we just had these things on special. I think they were like $7, $8 or something like that. This is now my second favorite one of these. Just by showing that, I think I'd get in trouble in the UK right there, because that's an assault knife. That's an assault knife. For me, it's like I'm going to chop something with that. That thing is such nice and heavy. Having all that weight on the front of the blade there, that's what this is great for. It's like half machete, but it's shorter than a machete. So that really makes it nice. Anyway, so assault knives or anything else that you can get your hands on where you can defend yourself with, right? Pepper spray, anything you can use to defend yourself. Along those lines, armor. Some places in the United States, you can't even get armor. Canada, you can't, from what I gather. So I don't know all the legalities here and there at different locations, everything like that. If you can get armor, armor has a very distinct purpose of keeping you alive, which is very dangerous to the government that doesn't want you to stay that way. If you can't get armor, there's another option for you, and that's called a ghillie suit. Everyone should get their ghillie suits. Even if you don't have boomsticks, having ghillie suits is a useful thing to have. Ghillie suits will help you disappear. Okay, now it's not invisibility, but done right, it can be darn close. Okay, done right, you can disappear into somebody's yard, and people may not be able to see you until they're right on top of you. Okay, that takes training, discipline, and if you're desperate and you have a ghillie suit on hand, you can go hide. And it will be a lot harder for people to find you unless, if they're really looking for you and they got dogs and everything like that and thermals, they'll find you. But I'm just saying, it's definitely something you should have in your package. You should have a ghillie suit. If you have like 50 boomsticks and no ghillie suit, like seriously, are the deer really going to rise up and take us out? That's not really my concern, and it probably shouldn't be yours either. Yeah, ghillie suit's not useful for hunting. Well, it is somewhat useful for hunting, but anyway. Ghillie suit. Drones. I know. I look at the demographics in my on my YouTube channel, and I know most of you guys are north of 40. Okay, that's the statistics. If you're not north of 40, well, give yourself a round of applause. You're one of the few on here. Drones. Friends, we need to figure these things out. I don't like them. It's weird and it feels like a toy, but drones are so powerful. So powerful. Now, I'm not talking about you going and attacking something or whatever. I'm talking about you just flying the thing around and being able to see over the horizon. Instead of you wondering what's on the other side of that building, you can just fly that drone around and go, there's nothing on that other side of the building. That's really useful information to know. And that's whether you're just trying to avoid getting got, or whether you're trying to do something or try to move or having someone being able to scout out ahead with something that won't die is a big deal. It's a really big deal. Drones. And I said that plural. I didn't say a drone. I would recommend getting at least a couple good visual drones and then getting some cheap ones too. That can still do the job. They're a little more disposable. There's cheap ones and then there's good ones, okay? But even just figuring out how to fly drones and getting one just to practice with, and you can do some fun stuff with it, okay? Drones. I have a whole video about this over on my Poplar Prepper channel where I talked about acting out. Now, this is a little more hardcore than that other video is, because that one's talking more about like protests and soft kind of things. But laser pointers. Laser pointers. In protests around the world, laser pointers have been used to bring down drones. Laser pointers in large quantities using, instead of throwing stuff, you can shine stuff. And that's a dangerous thing too, in its own way, right? Do you have laser pointers? Stronger the better, okay? Laser pointers. Fireworks. They're using those over in the UK because that's something they can actually get their hands on. But if you package them and keep them dry, fireworks can last over 10 years. So if you Ziploc them or Mylar them up, you put them and keep them nice and dry and airtight, you can keep those things for quite a long time. Fireworks. There's uses for them, from smoke to more interactive ones. This is an interesting one. Vehicles. Okay. Now I know in the UK you have vehicles, right? But a lot of people, when they're buying vehicles, they're thinking, does it look cool? Does it get good mileage? What will other people think about me? That kind of stuff. But they're not thinking that this is a tool. Now, a bunch of you guys are like, well, of course it's a tool. I've always thought that way, and that's great. I'm talking to those who aren't thinking of it that way. This is a tool. If you have boomsticks, if you have armor, and all kind of stuff like that, you got to think about, how am I going to get to where I'm going? And would one vehicle be a little more useful than other vehicles? And the answer to that is obviously. Obviously, some vehicles are just better. Some vehicles, you can cram a whole bunch of people in the back. You know what I'm saying? Some vehicles, you can hardly get yourself in them. There's a difference there. Some vehicles, you have enough room to do stuff from within the vehicle, okay? All I'm saying is, if you're looking at getting a vehicle, think along the lines of, is this part of my preps? Can it get places? Can it do stuff when it gets to those places? Off-grid payments. This is something, one of the reasons why I keep pushing you guys towards things like silver. If I walk up to somebody, and I know a whole bunch of people are like, you can't eat silver. I take this kilo bar of silver up to somebody who has food, someone who thought ahead to have food, and guess what? They're going to give me that food. They're going to give me other stuff that I need too. Why? Because I do that. If you walked up to me, I'm going to test it. I'm going to test to make sure that this is silver. But if you walk up to me with gold or silver and you want some food, guess what? You're going to be at the front of the line of people that's going to get food from me. It's just the way it's going to be. You may not like that. You may not believe that. But in the history of humankind, if you had precious metals, from watches to anything like, go watch your Holocaust documentaries where they were using gold and watches and jewels and gems and jewelry and all that kind of stuff like that for trade within camps and everything like that. Friends, this stuff will always have value. Will it have as much value? Will it buy you as much food as it does today? No, it won't. When dangers go up, prices go up. And that's just going to be the way it is. But you know what? If you have one of these, you're going to eat. And if you don't have one of these, you may not eat. Off-grid payments. Precious metals can change hands. Value has changed hands. And you know who wrote out the receipt, who wrote out the ticket, and who wrote out all the paperwork and documented it on the internets and everything? Nobody documented anything. It just happened. And the government doesn't know about it. Off-grid payments. Important stuff, friends. Do you have the capability to do that? Off-grid communications. We're talking about this over in the UK. People have tried communicating things to each other, and they are now in jail or prison because the UK, I got a video that's coming out this afternoon. It was a little intense for the morning video, so that's why we're back here getting you some practical stuff. But let's just say this afternoon video you're going to want to watch. There's a lot of news packed into that and some hard conversation about what happens next. Off-grid communications. There's some projects out there, Meshtastic, which is a off-grid communication network where people can communicate with each other. Of course, with radio communications, you're not allowed to encrypt stuff. So if you're encrypting stuff, you're either using a commercial license or you're just breaking the law in the United States. But do you have the capability of breaking the law in that way if you need to? How do you communicate with each other in a way that that the government doesn't break into? And there's no easy answers on that because they're so deep in so much. Going low tech is probably the best way of going about it. Paper notes passed between people who are not carrying cell phones, or as I like to call them, tracking and listening devices. If you have a tracking and listening device next to you, well, you better not say anything, okay? And you better not be connecting with people that you shouldn't be connecting with. Off-grid communications. You need to be starting to think through some of that stuff. And maybe, like I said, it's you just go low-tech and are very disciplined to make sure that you are not interacting with technology for certain features or whatever. Next, bug-out locations. Having networks, relationships, locations scouted out where that's where you're going if going gets tough. Because there are some people who said something over in the UK that the government didn't like. They may have gotten some warning that the government was coming for them. But most people, when they hear the government's coming for them, they don't have anywhere to go, so they give up. They don't have anywhere to go, so they give up. And there's consequences to not giving up, okay? I get that. But when you're in a situation where what do? You either surrender as a country, as a people, you just roll over. If you're not willing to do that, if a large percentage of the population is not willing to do that, should you do that? Or should you disappear? Do you have a plan for disappearing? That's not easily for people looking for you to figure out, okay? Do you have a plan? Do you have it planned out? Do you have it not documented digitally? If you figure it out by going out there with your cell phone, friends, they can figure that out really easily. You need to go there without your cell phone, okay? That leads us into comms discipline. And this is a hard one. And I am the opposite of this. If the government types into their supercomputer, their AI, and says, "Who is Steve Poplar?" I'm toast. I'm toast. They know my address. They know who I am. They know all the things I've said. Even the stuff that I've deleted and whatever. They know so much about me. They know everything about me. They can pull it all up. But what about you? How much do they know about you? How much have you said out there on the internets? We need to start thinking through what we say and not saying too much. Right? I've tried to make sure that I didn't ask you guys to disclose things that you shouldn't disclose or whatever. And some of you guys think that some of the things I have asked on polls and this and that have gone too far or whatever. And, we're adults here, so you need to figure out what you should answer. And if I put up a poll and you're like, I shouldn't answer that, well, then you shouldn't answer it, okay? That's not on me. That's on you, okay? If you fill out something you shouldn't and you regret it later on, I'm sorry. I don't think it's an issue, but maybe you do. We're all stumbling through the dark here. There's AI, there's mass surveillance like this world has never seen before, and we don't even know the full extent of it. I can give you some ideas of what the extent of it was in 2011, but I don't know the full extent of it today. And we're there where there's so much data being collected on us, it's really just a matter of they don't have enough time to process everyone's data, and AI is going to change all that because they will be able to just type in there, who's a troublemaker? Israel has contracted software that does this. Israel's dropping bombs on people right and left. And who are they dropping bombs on? Someone that the AI said, this dude, that dude, this address, that address. And then they're reviewing it. But the simple fact is that the AI is sifting through all the massive amounts of data and going, this person's a problem person. Take them out. And then some person's looking through it going, yeah, they are kind of a problem person. Let's just take them out. And then they decide how to take them out. Okay? That's, if you don't think that the United States government has that very same thing, Twitter has it. They just unveiled that over at Twitter, that it was built into all the coding and stuff like that. It was flagging people and saying, this person has these type of perspectives and they're saying this type of stuff. And so therefore, flag. Oh, they got 5 flags on them. Let's just silence them, or let's kick them off the platform, or let's grind them to a halt so nobody ever sees their stuff. You think that the government doesn't have that at a larger scale of saying these are the problem people. You probably don't want to be on that list. And I'm up there 3/4 of the way up there, okay? And so like I said, I'm not the guy to ask. And this last one here, the will to act. A bunch of people over in the UK have shown their willingness to act to an extent. And willingness to act is not really a checkbox, but rather a spectrum. How far are you willing to go? And I'm not saying you should be willing to go to on off. It shouldn't be where you're never willing to do anything. You're not willing to get up off your couch and vote. And I'm not saying you should be on the other end of the spectrum where you're completely unhinged on the other side, right? It's a spectrum. And each scenario, each permutation of the way the world may be around you will demand you to respond in a different way. The problem is, most of us are used to watching and waiting for somebody else to do something. And so in the UK, they're at a crisis moment where they need to act, and they need to act with decisiveness, and they need to get their government to stop doing what they're doing. And yet this week, most people in the UK still went to their work. The buses still ran. The trains still moved. You go to Paris and you go to France, and when they've had recent protests, the nation shut down. So I'm not saying you necessarily need to go out there and go do something really nefarious. I'm saying sometimes, en masse, the people of a nation need to sit down and say, no. We need you to go back and drive that bus again. Keep driving that bus. And you're going to say no. Me and the rest of the bus drivers are not going to do that until you back down, because you don't have the power. You and your thugs want to arrest people. You're not going to get served at this grocery store. You're not welcome here. You can go figure out how you're going to go get food, because you're not going to get food from here. They go to the post office. We lost your mail. There is so much we can do when we act together and we have the will to say no collectively. If the vast majority of the people are not willing to say no collectively, well, then it becomes a lot harder. It becomes a lot more dangerous. And we all need to do some gut checks. In the United States, we've talked about it before, where whole counties, whole states have said, you know what, on certain things, if you try pushing this, we're just going to say no. We're not going to allow you to send your goons in here to take away people's boomsticks. We're just not going to let you do that. If you try doing that, we will arrest you. We're not going to stand for that. We got the Second Amendment counties and states, sanctuary cities. The left started that, and the right has kind of enacted some of that on paper. Will we have the fortitude to actually take action on that? Or rather, I say, inaction on that? That remains to be seen. Will we have the courage? I don't know. The willingness to act? I don't know. Might be good to have the tools right now and to do some of the planning and think through some of those logistics, wouldn't you think? All right, friends. Like I said, you're definitely going to want to check out the video this afternoon. But before you go, there's this video over on Poplar Prepper, which talks more about some of these tools and everything like that. Perfectly legal tools in most places, even over in the UK, where you can get these things and tactics and things that you can use. You might want to check that out. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.